Hello, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to African American Craft in the Marketplace, hosted by artist and curator Camilla Bryce Laporte. We are so happy to have you joining us. I'm Lisa Martin with Silver Spring Town Center, and we have a great program in store for you, which is being recorded and eventually will be up on our YouTube page, where you can find some past events. I wanted to tell you about a few other events we have coming up. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, we have our Sparkle, monthly Sparkle program. Sparkle stands for Senior Programs Aimed at Rekindling Lifetime Engagement. And that's in the Civic Building at 2 o'clock, featuring attorney Alan Bowser speaking about estate planning. And then in the evening, we have a vision board workshop with artist Madeline Caliendo, who's also on SSTCI's board of directors. And that's at 7 on Zoom tomorrow night. We also have more events coming up. I'd encourage you to attend our arts salon. Our quarterly arts salon is on Tuesday, January 30th. And Camilla is actually the host of our arts salon. And this winter arts salon will focus on happy accidents. So if you have stories to share about your creative process that may have taken a different turn than intended, it's a great place to share that. During Black History Month, we have several fantastic events, including Tuesday, February 6th, African American Culinary Traditions. Our culinary traditions panel discussions have been a huge hit. I keep getting more and more requests. And that will be hosted by comic Haywood Turnipseed, who was on our Follow Your Bliss panel last night. And then on Wednesday, February 7th, we have Object Performance in the Black Atlantic in the studio with artist and author Paulette Richards. And Friday, February 9th, we have our Around the World Bazaar with an array of arts and cultural programming, including we have a Bollywood wedding dance workshop, Latin dance event. We also have the Freed female reenactors of distinction who do the female Civil War heroines reenactments. We have a comedy show. We have Bulgarian choral music with Orfea, and an array of other activities. We're also going to have an international potluck that night. So bring your favorite dish to share. On February 14th is our February Sparkle, and that will be in the Civic Building as well. Thurgood Marshall, a trailblazing civil rights victory in Montgomery County with Ralph Buglas of Montgomery History. And then on Friday, February 16th, we will have another Black Voices Through Poetry, hosted by poet and SSTCI's immediate past president, Brenda Bunting. So all of our events are made possible with generous support from Montgomery County, United Therapeutics, the Arts and Humanities of Montgomery County, Maryland State Arts, Montgomery College, and many others. And now I'd like to get started with the program. We have Camilla Bryce Laporte, who is so deeply involved in African American arts and craft, and she's a fantastic doll maker, curator. She has a show currently at City Lore, where all of the today's panelists are featured. Their work is featured. That City Lore is in New York City. And so this conversation grew out of that project. So I'd like to turn it over to our host, Camila Bryce Laporte. Welcome,
Hi, thank
Camila.
you. See me looking through my bifocals. How are
Okay,
you
take it
all?
away.
And welcome to tonight's presentation. The women that are presented here tonight um, are members of, we called ourselves the Village of African American Doll and Puppet Artists in an exhibition. We started this at an exhibition we did at Kabibi's, Wave Kabibi, at Kabibi's uh, Frederick Douglass Isaac Myers Gallery in Baltimore, Maryland. It's a wonderful gallery. If you ever get a chance, please get up there. She does incredible work showcasing the arts of the region. But we realized we had something. Um, we've been working together and journeying together and combining our arts. And now we have this exhibition in New York called The Calling, The Transformative Power of Doll and Puppet Making. This is our program book. It's backwards here, but we will, uh, I guess on Lisa's site, we can make it turn the mirror image so that you can see it.
No, you can see it.
You can see it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's just crooked on mine. It's just backwards on mine. So the calling, I'm going to read a little bit so I don't get lost. But the calling is an exhibition. It's a timely showcase of artists as historical witness, visual storytellers, and cultural stewards. In a time when um, there is an effort to erase Black history, separate it from American history, which it cannot be. These women uh, who are passionate about their history and about their culture and the culture of this country have been working diligently. They are examples of excellence and resilience and resistance. And rather than calling us senior artists, Kabibi has a wonderful description of who we are. Who are we, Kabibi, collectively? What did you say we were?
I said that we are vintage. We are uniquely positioned to interrogate and speak about the past, the present, as a portal into the future.
Yes.
We are stay current, but we are clear about past and the importance of it. We stand on its shoulders.
That's right. Thank you. And we are involved in an art form that is usually invisible and discounted, doll and puppet making. But what people don't realize is that it requires, I'm not saying this because I'm in it, but it requires a complexity of skills, beadworking, painting, sewing, sculpting, and also and materials, paper mache, textiles, beadwork, um, um, air dried and ceramic clay. But we're more than just doll artists. The people that you see on this screen have long histories in the arts, and they're also historians and anthropologists and folklorists and dancers and musicians who are committed to the preservation of culture. And one of the things we want to talk about this evening is not only dedicated to them, but dedicated to the marketplace, which is critical to our art forms and critical to our development. They are actually artist entrepreneurs. That's the best, or entrepreneurial artists. That's what I like to call them. And before we begin, I'm going to ask Diana Njai, who's here. She's our anthropologist, and Dr. Diana Njai of the Smithsonian, almost retired curator, senior curator, to talk a little bit about what a craft is and what is a marketplace, especially in the African diaspora.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And this is such a great opportunity to talk with all of the artists, as Camila mentioned, and she herself kind of exemplifies. We're really multifaceted documenters and creators of culture. So And this isn't new. This isn't new. In fact, going back centuries to the Ma'afa, to the time when African American artists were kidnapped and taken to these shores. It wasn't by chance that many of our ancestors were incredible craftspeople, uh, blacksmiths and masons and um, people who were experts at sewing, at creating clothing, at dyeing um, cloth, at so many different things. And these are crafts that were handed down for quite a while from mother to daughter, from father to son, across generations. And so this is a very long-standing tradition in African American communities. And what is and also it's really interesting looking at history, because in addition to making things, uh many of the artists, historical artists, also used what they made to support causes, to
Mhm.
support abolition.
Mhm.
And you're thinking, Elizabeth Kegley, who even while she was enslaved, she'd built up such an incredible skill in dressmaking that she was not only able to free herself, but she was also um, one of the people who made the Lincoln's dress. She made clothing for high society in the United States. And then coming past that, there were just incredible. I can't go through all of them now, but I wanted to say that this is a long-standing tradition. Um, it's interesting that also when as contemporary craftspeople in the past few decades, when the world of craft, and by craft I mean people who use materials and skills and techniques and artistry to make things that are tangible. Um, when African American craft artists were not being shown in galleries, were not in the stores, um, we developed our own festivals, our own the African street festivals, supported many people. Um, Entrepreneurs, craft entrepreneurs like the extraordinary Busy Bee Britton, developed a whole holiday market at Shiloh Baptist Church, right in the region. There were the Belmont artists who were right off 14th Street doing wonderful, incredible work. And so, and other things, we supported each other. There are many people here who have become not only excellent artists, but also teaching artists and have taught for many years. I see Elaine Rubnett-Moore here, who's taught all through the world, and Kabibia Janku, who has transnational connections. Pam Rogers, who is also a singer who's created some of the beautiful performance garments that Sweet Honey and the Rock and her own group in process have worn. So, the tradition has been one of mutual support. And we don't only stop at thinking about things like making clothing and creating jewelry, or even the big things like doing commissions for gates and other large structures. But if you think about it, even hair braiding, for example, and hair cutting, that's a craft. These are craftspeople who have kept the Afro economy going
Mhm.
during bad times and good.
Right.
If you add culinary arts, you get more. But there is a very, very long tradition of African American craft. So
Thank
thank you, Camilla.
Thank you. And thank you for creating, introducing the marketplace. Before we go on, I want to introduce you to each of the artists or have the artists introduce themselves. And you already met a little bit, you met Diana and Kabibi a little bit, but I want them each to speak for themselves and do a presentation of their work. And then we'll go on and talk about the world in which they came from and the marketplace in that world that they and others created. So I'm going to start in alphabetical order. Miss Kabibi Ajanku, Dr. Professor Ajanku, Mama Ajanku, all of your titles. Would you like to start us off?
If you would like, this is not my presentation. This
That's
is
all.
me.
This is you talking about, well, I wanted you to do your PowerPoint, but you can go ahead and talk. What
Do
would
you
you
want me to do that now or
you
on
could do it now?
it's up to you.
Yeah,
I'm
I want you to do it now.
all right. Okay. Yes. Hi. My name is my name is Kibibi Ajanku. I'm going to jump right in to the PowerPoint then so that I won't be redundant because Camila asked me to use something that introduced myself and my work and kind of my reason for being. So I'm just going to jump in if you don't mind without further ado.
Yeah.
I'm going to click this share screen button and see what kind of magic we get. There, here we go. All right. So my PowerPoint is entitled The Convergence of Artistry and Identity. Kibibi Ajanku, artist, curator, educator, folklorist. And there I am. You'll see why I'm blue later on. And this is a quote, so unlike Elmo, I usually don't talk about myself in the third person, but I'm going to read the quote anyway. Kibibi Ajanku is a multifaceted artist. She makes and presents ethnically charged art because her passion embodies the thrust of the African diaspora. Ajanku's creativity is the ongoing and ever-evolving effort of her life journey. Her work is eclectic and innovative. It is ancient while at the same time new world and always changing, becoming artistry that is layered with and entrenched in indigenous folkways. My work embodies research. It embodies identity, and the gathering of elements of African retention, all in hopes of evoking intuitive memories, those deep down things that we don't even know that we have, that reach back into ancestral histories. That's what Camila's talking about. That's what Diana is talking about. Those things that stuff in our DNA that just comes through it. It oozes out of us. And the stories that impact the here and the now. I wonder if I can even click. There we are. I'm a folklorist and a textile artist. Social justice is embodied in the messaging of all that I do, and it takes shape in the following ways. Activist artist, I do this identity kind of work. That's what my doll making is. As an arts administrator, I'm an equity worker in the arts sector. I'm an educator. I train leaders. I'm a curator. My work in the gallery, or the work that I invite in the gallery, is that with social justice messaging. The combination, the sum total of these things in concert, this is what is important. It's not the things singularly, it's the sum total of these things. Because in my mind, they all connect. In truth, my work is a convergence. It's a convergence of material, time, and place. It's a convergence of past, present, and future. It's a convergence of African diaspora worldview. My passion for textile arts embodies the thrust and the movement of the African diaspora. I said that. And this began early. I was nurtured by grandma's hands, as I sat at the knees of a quilt making and crocheting grandmamas, both of my grandmothers on both sides. It wasn't long before I followed on the heels of fashion-forward, sassy seamstress aunties. This fueled an artistic journey as an exploration and execution of an indigenous aesthetic. The translation is that everything I do points to identity. Consistency in combination fueled by convergence of past, present, and future become the linkage that pulls it all together, everything working towards one unified goal. The production of work steeped in identity is a resistance element. It's an aggressive element. It is a refusal. It is an affirmation, and it is an assertion all at one time, assuring that all will be included, and more importantly, none, absolutely none, will be excluded all at one time. I stand on the shoulders of the past through artistry that is rich, diverse, and creative. It is ancient while at the very same time cutting edge and always, always, always changing. It is my hope that the sum total of my work is experienced as a practice, a service, and a portal that messages and inspires steps towards a more balanced and inclusive way of existence. My work takes shape in motion. I make costumes. I'm an African dancer, and for over 35 years, every costume that went onto the stage touched my hands in some way, form, or fashion. So this is some of that collection. My work takes shape in glass, because as you see, there's still identity work.
Beautiful.
Right? I start every year breaking glass. That's the thing that I do as we move from the 2023 into 2024. I am literally working in art, and I'm breaking glass as a metaphor that change is a good thing, as a metaphor that there is nothing that is limiting. My work takes place on canvas, and this is fiber arts. So this is a way to deconstruct and reimagine fiber artistry, textile artistry, indigo artistry. In art quilts,
Beautiful.
the stitching together of pieces in ways that connect to the motherland, but go into the South, that touch our mothers and our mothers' mothers and our mothers' mothers' mothers, in an effort to use bits and pieces of upcycled wonderment to keep warm and to keep the family nurtured. And in mask. This is a kumpo mask. It's raffia. It's made in the kumpo is danced in the Gambia, and in the Casamas region. It is a harvest mask, as a metaphor in this side of the pond, on this side of the world, that everything, that all of our work bears fruit. It bears wonderful fruit. In Afrofuturism, because we are past, present, and future all at one time. In dolls, what kind of identity would we have if we didn't see ourselves as children, as little teeny people? So these dolls start in the indigo vat, and then they get glass beads for strength and focus. They get cowrie for that fertility that comes and to bring prosperity. They get all of these kinds of decorations that touch Africa, touch the South, touch us here, and move us into the future. Most often these days, the work out of my art studio comes straight out of the indigo vat. I am an indigo artist. indigo. My love for traditional indigo dyeing has continually deepened, and it is repeatedly impacted during my visits to West Africa. But in this USA, indigo represents not just beauty, it represents defiance and determination to maintain cultural identity despite unimaginable colonial horrors. Textiles transcend borders and histories of erasure. I understand this rupture, and I have devoted a space in my artistic practice for remembrance and rightful association of indigo traditions with African and African American innovation and creative genius. Indigo work in many places. During my season, that warm season, my indigo season, you'll most often see me with blue hands. My work also takes place in the training of leaders for the arts sector. See, our youth or our grown folk, there are game changers, our folk that interrogate and disrupt our todays so that we are change makers for tomorrow. So I stand at the helm of an initiative called Urban Arts Leadership. These leaders are being prepared to go into instrumental roles, not go into arts organization as the help, but to go into arts organization at the top. So it is about strengthening their tool bag, their cultural awareness. Their leadership is ready to go by the time they graduate from Urban Arts Leadership. I do this for the Greater Baltimore Cultural Alliance. Uh-oh.
Okay.
In the gallery, this is my next show. Camila said that I have a gallery. I'm the curator for a gallery that is a part of the Living Classrooms Foundation. It is in Fells Point, Baltimore. It's called Frederick Douglass Isaac Myers Museum, and it stands on the ground, the pier that was owned by Isaac Myers, a Black man who hired Frederick Douglass, a Black man, before he manumitted himself. So the work and the artistry that I invite into the gallery and share with the world is social justice messaging. The next up is Diary of a Mad Black Man. The artist is Aaron Mabin. He's a former NFL player, but left the NFL because of racism. He left it. He did not get the fame that Kaepernick got by refusing to take a knee. But like many of us in this world, when we get to a point that we just cannot stand and we just refuse to break, we walk away. And he is one that walked away. He's Baltimore's own.
Thank you.
And in family, there are a lot of us. That's my family. They make me smile, and they are all change makers. Yep. In Ankara African print and in blackety black, black, black. We are a family of artists and musicians. In closing, I believe that my work is a solution that must be fluid and ever-changing to meet the needs of individuals with great intention and great care. This is bold evolutionary work. This is social justice. This is true change. We are the voice of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that's great.
That was great. Bravo. Brava. That was beautiful, Kabibi. And every single one of you is, the nice thing about this panel is that we have equally talented artists that we would like to present. And after you've seen that, consider the marketplace. She just gave you a huge lesson. More than we asked for, of course. Her way to excel, she's that student. So next, Elaine, you're next. Elaine Robnett Moore. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Elaine Robnett Moore. She's more than a doll designer. She didn't even know she was until I told her she was. But she's probably started making dolls before most of us, 1976, except Pam. I think Pam, you beat her out. But Elaine Robnett Moore is writer and jewelry designer and a very good friend to Silver Spring Town Center and to me as well when I let her. But Elaine, do you want to do your presentation now? And
I will, yes. I'm going to start this presentation by introducing you in picture to my children that inspired the doll that I made, Kizzy.
yes.
This was back in the day when the children were little, and then the bottom picture was one a little more current. This is Kizzy, and she is modest, so I thought I would show her without the clothes, just in order for you to see what she looked like. This is what I do now. And
Where is Kizzy? Is she up on the screen?
she was, just a second. I will go back.
I think you need to share screen.
I
Share
thought, oh, I forgot to do that. Sorry. Let me, okay. Where?
If you put the cursor at the bottom of your screen, it'll light up, Elaine.
Okay,
Share
thank you.
screen. Mhm.
Right.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, that's
Okay.
beautiful. Look at the people.
Oh, wow.
So this is my tribe,
Mhm.
my immediate tribe. One second, let me get it. There we go. That's my immediate tribe, all 5 of them.
Mm.
And this is when they were older. And this is Kizzy. This
I love the place tape. Very good.
Right.
she's modest. Come on
Yeah.
now. She's a member of the family. She needs to be shown in her modesty. The background from here on out or designs that I have created, and I'm going to just let the designs speak for themselves, but I will talk to you about the process and what has driven me to this point. Apparently, I've been an artist all my life, although I was not clearly aware of that in the beginning. But I come from a long line of artists. As many of you know, my ancestry goes back to Alexander Dumas in France and, well, actually originating in Haiti, but to Alexander Dumas, and it comes up to Francis Guyot, who is a 4th great grandfather with pieces at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and on and on and on. My children, like Kabibis, are for the most part artistic and buried in the arts, so to speak. It's in our DNA. There's no question about DNA and how it plays a role in what we do and who we are and so on. Back in the day, when I first I was in business in St. Louis, Missouri, which is where I come from. And in business, we were aware of what was going on in the Black community because we were Black and we had to deal with it every single day. It wasn't the arts, although we had an alive Black art movement in St. Louis. What we also had was Black business, which was held down, and we had to fight tooth and nail to pull up in that world. And I did that, and certainly participated in real estate and owned a travel agency. When my children were little, we couldn't find dolls. that represented my children. And I was not about ready to just give them white dolls so that they could learn how to care for people other than themselves. So I decided I would make a doll, which ended up being Kizzy, who was named after the Roots movie series on television. Um, I was going to make one for each of my children, but by the time I got through putting the hair in the doll, one strand at a time, I concluded that one doll was more than enough for all five of my children, and I would just have to keep it because that was the only fair thing to do, which is why when Camila came by and was taking a class from me on jewelry making, she saw, she asked, I said to her, I have made a doll only once in my life. And she said, well, do you have a picture? And I said, I can do you better than that because I still keep her in the dining room so that when grandchildren and great grandchildren come by, and like you, Kabibi, I have 18 grandchildren. I don't know that you have 18, but I mean, it's a large family. And
I have 14.
Oh, poor underachiever.
Yes.
I have 18 grandchildren and 12 great grandchildren.
Oh.
And even my 3-year-old, one of the 3-year-old great grandchildren is already doing photography with Nikon and telling his mom to take it off of automatic because he can't focus like that. I'm just telling you, it's an amazing world. I think it's important to say that even in business back in St. Louis, aside from making the doll and helping my children to navigate their Blackness and helping others to navigate our Blackness, I also, in doing the business, made sure that I hired Blacks, that we put them in every important position. We built a housing complex. We managed the largest African American owned office building in the city. And we did everything that we could to support and validate the value and worth of our people, because that was the lesson that I needed to pass on to my children and their descendants. We had an active artist community. I was not as involved in it other than to attend performances and gallery shows until I moved here and discovered that I had the affinity. I was engaged, I love this story. I was engaged to a gentleman from Senegal when I moved here. I had been divorced for some time. And so he introduced me to the idea of wearing waist beads. And I decided that I had some time, I would make some waist beads to wear. And that was the beginning of my introduction to jewelry making and to African trade beads, all of which are not made in Africa. They are traded into Africa from Venice and Europe. But the bottom line is, once they arrive in Africa, they are cherished and considered precious. And the families will take the beads, give them to the elders, and the elders will bury the beads until such time as they need them for ceremonies and so on. So they have great value and spiritual elements to them. And then there are beads that are made in Africa. I teach, I think Camila stated that I teach. I do. I teach, and Diana did as well. I teach jewelry making and micro business development worldwide. And I have been doing that for a number of years. I love it because you are exposed to artists all over the world, and you begin to see the value of the work that they do. And I work with them to help finish the technique to finishing techniques, because that's important. And generally, whether here or overseas, that is the element that's missing, is the finish. Even with sophisticated designers here, often it is a matter of helping them to incorporate better techniques of finishing their work. Just how to attach the clasp and how to look at designs differently. And when we share that information, whether here in Malaysia, in Africa, in the Bahamas, it doesn't matter where, you'd be amazed at how much you bring back and can share with people here. It's a tremendously valuable tool, and it exposes us to so much, and hopefully it encourages them to develop globally competitive pieces. It doesn't just deal with jewelry. It also deals with all of the arts. And so whether it's jewelry making or metalsmithing or metal relief work or leather work, it is assisting people worldwide to take what they do, combine it with other work, or refine what they're doing so that it's marketable and can create economic growth for them individually, in their village, or in their country. And that's what we do. And it's a wonderful thing. I'm going to be going back over fairly soon. I've just been designated a Fulbright specialist, so I'm looking forward to going back and finishing up some projects in Rwanda and initiating one in Senegal and doing some work in Malaysia as well. I'm going to finish here by saying, if you do what you love, there will be those who love what you do. And all of us have a little art in us, whether it's in the creative fields that we're talking about today, or whether it's in the everyday things like sweeping a floor or washing dishes. I don't care. There is an art to everything. And hopefully you find that art, latch onto it, or experience it by visiting the galleries and recognizing what others are doing. And that's it. I think
Excellent.
that's about
Wow.
Thank you. Big wow. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Elaine. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm going to reintroduce you all to Diana and Jai before we get to Pam Rogers. Diana, you want to talk about
Okay.
your work too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just still in awe of the other two artists that were presented, and actually had the pleasure of being mentored by Elaine Roblet Moore, and can attest to, not only her beautiful jewelry, but also her business smarts. So I really appreciate that. So I actually I'm going to show you a little bit of my website, but then go into a little bit about the African American Craft Initiative, which I direct um, at the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage at the Smithsonian, and talk a little bit about what's gonna happen there. So I started making jewelry a long time ago, and then and actually my first trip to Senegal was paid for by jewelry that I sold. And I've always made stuff. But I thought I was going to be a jewelry designer. Well, I thought I was going to be a designer as my day job, and then kind of got seduced away for a bit um, in doing anthropology and really looking at the art of the world and looking at the craft of the world, and ended up after many years at the Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage and was able to see the world and was able to look at many, many traditions of global African art making and craft. So it's been a very, very rich time. As I think somebody mentioned, I'm getting ready to retire, but it's a fake retirement because I'll still be doing lots of stuff. And so I'm actually going to start off talking a little bit about the African American Craft Initiative, which all of these artists are networked in and a part of. And it started out, I'm going to try to share my screen. Let me see if I can do that. Slideshow, play from start, and then, oh, it did something that it wasn't supposed to do. Hold on a second. I'm going to share my screen. And then I'm going to share this screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's beautiful.
Great, great. Well, the African American Craft Initiative came about because during the pandemic, well, it was at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was supposed to be doing something called the Crafts of African Fashion, which was focusing on the craftspeople who actually create these beautiful, beautiful fashions that have taken over the world, really, from the capitals of Europe to all throughout the African continent. African designers are being highlighted, but a lot of times they are sending their designs to family members, to people within their communities to actually create the work. And I said, well, hey, what happened to the craftspeople? Because you never know who they are a lot of times. So that was that focus. But then when the pandemic hit and everybody had to pivot, that was the word, I realized that, right here in the States, there were so many amazing artists, and only very, very few were being recognized in the craft world. They weren't in the books, they weren't in the collections, and so on. So, although I am a folklorist, a cultural specialist, an anthropologist, and also a textile artist, and these are some of the things that I have made. Okay, I think I can go from here. The African American Craft Initiative really seeks to document, to support, to amplify the voices of African American craft artists. And it does it in many, many ways. There's through developing the talents and supporting young curators, young people who will be doing the research and the curation of the future. And this is the Beverly Robinson Community Folk Culture. They've been partners for a very long time, and they work with many things. So we wanted to make sure that we had improved and increased research and documentation of African American makers, that we were able to create new networks and renewed networks that linked African American makers to support organizations, and then increase the public awareness of African American craft. Is this going forward, by the way? Are you seeing different
Yes,
things?
yeah,
Okay,
yes.
great. And so we did do a series of convenings to create and strengthen these networks. And so we had online convenings, we produced reports. These are all available, by the way, on the Smithsonian Center for Folklife site, and organizing follow-up meetings. And so we had 3 convenings: the summit, which focused on African American craft artists, scholars, organizers, and activists; the craft organization think tank. And when we were doing the research for this, we realized that there were so many organizations, but they weren't necessarily talking to each other. There were organizations of Black women sewists, there were organizations of woodworkers and people in craft collectors for ceramics and so on. And then finally, after we had all this information and really had a sense of the state of African American craft, we went to some of the larger craft institutions, or some of the ones that, like the American Craft Council and the Center for Craft, and places like that that really were looking at craft overall in the United States. We said, look, you keep on saying that there's not many people, not many craft artists, but look at all of this, and this is what we need to do. And we've got to have the primary agency. But if you really want to help us, if you really want to diversify what's known about the craft world, um, you need to come on board and help us. So we've developed several projects, and many of the people that you see here have been involved in some of those projects, and continue to be involved. And right now, we have several publications. Right now, we are working with a few, I guess, projects. One is to create legacy planning for African American artists, and we're working with museums to do that, across the country. Where there's City Lore in New York, there's um, the Orange County Regional History Center in Orlando. There's MSU Museum in Michigan, and there is leaving out one, Springfield
Ohio?
Museum of Art.
Was it
No,
Ohio?
Springfield Museum of Art.
Right.
And so with all of these, we've developed workshops, training workshops. We've also done events that link the two continents, that link Africa and the US with Senegalese metalsmithing. I'm going this very fast. We've done things. There's Elaine at the American Craft Council Baltimore show, May 3rd to 5th. And all of these events are to bring attention to the very, very rich and vibrant African American craft world. So we have a monthly makers bulletin. Now I'm going to go through this really fast. I'm not going to stick on this, but we've had an internship program. It's inspired a jewelry initiative. We actually, some of the work that we did ended up in the Smithsonian American Art Renwick Gallery when they were looking to acquire work for their gallery. And these are some of our partners. Okay, so the latest one is the African American Folk School Alliance, and they will be babysitting, or they will be the temporary home for the African American Craft Alliance when I leave the Smithsonian. And we're working to make sure that we have stewardship from an African American organization for the Craft Alliance. So we have lots and lots of collaborators, and these are the ones from the staff, but all of the folks you see in this gathering here have been part of that. And so yeah, that's been a really important thing. And my own work, I'm just going to go very, 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 very fast. Let me see. Can everyone see that?
No, I don't see
Oh.
your.
Well, she's not showing her work yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think you
Okay.
have to stop share and start again.
Okay. I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to start really fast again. Okay. I'm actually just going to show very quickly my website, which you can see. Okay, here it is. Which starts out she was a fidgety little girl because that's what I was. So I was always making stuff and doing stuff. And my work is all textile.
Can you show some of it? Oh, I
And
love that piece.
okay, so these are objects of adornment. I'm just going to go quickly through that. And I work primarily in textiles. I work with reused textiles. It's very important to me that we look at saving. We have so much stuff in the world, and um, there's so much cloth, and sometimes you see it. I live part-time in Senegal, and it shows up on the shores, all of these t-shirts and jeans and things like that that people are putting, in the bins, right? They show up in West Africa, and they eventually show up on the shores in the seaside. And so I try to really focus on recycling. Um, and I also am really concerned about how there's so much violence. We live in a culture of violence in the United States, and violence many times against people of color and so on. But one of the reparations has to do with repairing, and has to do with going with making hunters blinds, and glorifying the culture of recreational hunting, to creating menders blinds. And so these are a few views of an installation, which is actually a menders blind, where people can go in and uh, mend a relationship with yourself or with others, or mend a sock, darn a sock, all of these kinds of things that really speak to mending the community, the world that we live in. And I'm a craft evangelist, so I think that some of that could come through the links we make through craft. So I'm going to stop there, and thank you so much for the chance to talk about this.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm going to stop sharing. There you go.
Thank you. That was great. And last but certainly not least is Pam Rogers. Hi, Pam. Pam Rogers. Can you hear us, Pam? Pam, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
You just need to unmute, Pam.
Have you unmuted?
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Okay.
Hi, Pam. How are you?
Hello.
This is Pam
Oh
Rogers.
man, that was so exciting.
Wasn't that
Everything
exciting? They're all three are so exciting.
That is so
So,
exciting. The work
Pam, are
that
you
you've
wearing your
done.
designs? Is that one of your designs? What you
Well, the
want?
head is, yes.
Yeah.
The head is.
So Pam is
Yes.
a multi-talented artist herself. She is the director of In Process. She did the music, which is the backdrop for our exhibition, which these artists haven't seen as yet. And the exciting news is that she's been directing In Process for what, 25 years now? Is it more than what are we?
It's around 40. It's around
40 years, right? And she's getting ready to direct the next iteration of this project. We are putting our work to music with the help of Pam Rogers. What's neat about Pam is we're also putting it in the context of the development of the DMV, what we call the DMV here, which is the DC, well, for us it's Baltimore and metropolitan Washington. It's that corridor that extends from Baltimore almost to Richmond. And we're talking about the social history and the communities from which these women emerged, especially Pam and Kabibi, and the women and the communities in which they enriched, newcomers enriched, like Diana and Elaine, and what happened to the Black community. We're going to begin with the golden age of Black or African American arts. Actually predates it a little bit. Pam, can you set the stage? What was the community like during that era?
Well, I was just, as everybody was talking, I was thinking about how, we were all connected during this whole period of time. And I would say that when I first, I work at the Smithsonian now, and I've been at the Center for Folk Life with Diana and worked on a number of projects with her. And also, uh, because of I think that what started me out was when I made a trip to West Africa in 1981. So that introduced me to all the textiles there in West Africa. And that was so exciting because, I had seen pictures of them and everything, but to really touch it, and to go to the Du Bois Center and see people creating, art there. It was really, really great. So I brought a lot of it back, and then I decided I was going to be a textile artist myself. So I made quite a few outfits, and this is how I got interested and how I got connected up with the community, because you make things and you make so many things for yourself, and then you say, oh, well, maybe when people see you in it, then they want it. So, and one place that's really important in the African American community is like the hairdresser.
Mm-hmm.
So I started out, I was going to a hairdresser. Her name's Ernestine Corbin. He still is doing hair today. And, I made some outfits out of mud cloth. So that's why I'm wearing mud cloth today. And she said, oh, that's just wonderful. Why don't you, here, I'll just hang one up here and I'll take orders. So then I started making multiple, like mud cloth tunics and hats and all kinds of things. And then I discovered this whole network of shops that would sell, that and carry your creations, whatever you made. It was a different thing. I'd always sewn from the time I was a little girl, but I would sew for individual people. But this was a whole different thing. This was like you have something in mind and you make it, and then you don't make it for yourself, but you make it because you see that it's something that the community would look good in. So
Can I back you up a little bit? I'm going to back you and Kabibi up a little bit.
Okay.
I want them to have, so that they can understand the impact of the time that you came of age. All of us would have come of age during the civil rights and the Black arts movement, but you all were here prior to when those things were having a huge impact. Can you describe the communities that existed, the Black communities that existed? And what people don't realize is that we were communities that were stratified within segregation. We had solid communities. Am I correct? And they extended, I mean, you could go from Baltimore to Richmond and find, extraordinarily intact communities. Can you describe a little bit what that was like, and then talk about the transition after the riots?
Oh, yes. So yes, there were, places where Black shops, where you could buy things. And there were just a whole bunch of creative, for example, there was downtown, well, actually,
Before the riots, what was it like?
before the riots, I think that I would say we weren't as combined into a single location, but actually the riots created because it destroyed most of downtown, and people, had gone, then a lot of the Black shops populated in the downtown area at that time. So, that was kind of like a result of the riot.
Right. What was it like in Baltimore, Kabibi?
In Baltimore, there was many of the places that you see that are blighted now were much more like a Mecca, Pennsylvania Avenue was just end-on-end boutiques. It was, you really got dressed to go into boutiques on Pennsylvania Avenue. I was a little girl. We, that is where, like, my mother bought her clothes on Pennsylvania Avenue, and there was, the Arch Social Club, and there were my parents dated and went to see Billie Holiday on Pennsylvania Avenue. And I was talking to my aunt. My mother and my aunt are over 90 both, and my mother's 99, my aunt is 93. And I was talking to my aunt and my mother about Pennsylvania Avenue, and my aunt is my mother had there were 5 girls, and they'd have to stay together, so they would sneak on Erla into the club, and they would say, they sit her at the bar, "Don't you move." And my aunt, and she'd drink ginger ale, and she'd say, "Yeah, I remember when Riri was just a little old skinny thing." I'm like, "Well, who's Riri?" Aretha Franklin, right? So, that was Pennsylvania Avenue. The Sphinx Club, the Arch Social Club, those are things where you dressed up to go. Those are Black communities that no longer exist,
And
I think
Tammy,
it,
who was talking? I'm sorry, did I cut someone?
me, I was saying in DC, I think it was the U Street corridor,
Yes.
where
right.
we had all the art. We had Howard University was there, and you had the Howard Theater, which was all the fabulous people came to that. And then there were shops all along that corridor that Black people owned, and you could buy. That's where you did your shopping and everything all along that area, the area. And then, and then we had, after the civil rights movement, of course, then we had, Pride and, all of the organizations that were created as a result of the civil rights movement. And I just want to mention that my sisters and I, we were, I'm really old, so, we were part of the integration of the Catholic schools in DC. So we were from a very early age, kind of in both, making changes in the way things were happening, especially in education, because, we were a part of that group that integrated the schools. And then, so we had that experience, as well as the experience of being in a whole Black community, Black church, everything like that, but yet being educated in the white schools.
And I think, Kabibi, you were doing some of that too, right? In Baltimore, weren't you doing that with the Quaker schools?
I went to Friends School for 10 years. It was that whole thing about tokenism, I believe, is cruel and unusual punishment. It
totally is.
You don't fit in anywhere. And so for a great deal, you don't fit in at school, you don't fit in at home, in your community, you talk different from everybody, you look different from everybody, but you come out well educated.
So true.
What's interesting is that you all were there, breaking down these barriers, and yet you were both so heavily involved in the transformation of the art scene in both cities. Pam in Panama, right, Pam? Pam in Washington and Kabibi in Baltimore. You were very much aware of a diaspora. How did that happen, and when did that happen?
Well, I said, for me, I was so, this is, I was having, it was like an after effect of Catholic education. I'm gonna tell you, because, you're in this all white environment, but yet and you're like a split personality. So you go into school with the white school, you're getting a great education, but you have no social life at all. So you have to find your community in order to survive, basically. And so, I found, I would hang out on U Street, and I would go to, do Black rep, anything Black. I'm looking for it because, I'm just like starved for that. And during this time, I met Bernice and Sweet Honey, and she was working at the Smithsonian, and I started working down there doing programming. And actually, that was my education in Black history at the hands of Bernice Johnson Reagan. That's how I learned, Black songs and Black culture and everything. That's where I learned it, at the Smithsonian. And she was actually in the process of bringing the whole Black community in DC into the Smithsonian, because even though it was there, it wasn't something that the Black community frequented, because it wasn't really meant for us. She was the first one that had a program that brought the community of DC into the Smithsonian. It wasn't a thing. You didn't go there. Somebody came to town, you didn't say, "Oh, let's go to the Smithsonian Museum." You didn't do that. You take on the U Street to the Howard Theater, okay? It was just, and so that just it helped to just change my whole perspective on life. And then so I'm singing, I'm learning all these Black songs, and I'm thinking, feeling like, oh, finally I found my culture. And then when I went to Africa, I saw these women. Well, first of all, the first thing that really got me was they were sweeping. And my mother had always, swept down the steps and swept the street and the tree box and everything. And I could say, why are you sweeping the tree box? But when I went to Africa, the very first thing I see are these Black women sweeping, whatever courtyards, whatever they had brooms, they were sweeping. And I thought, oh my God, this is cultural. This is something that we brought over, and it was just incredible, just a connection there. And then to see women, my grandmother and my mother taught me to sew, but to see women sewing at a marketplace in a little teeny closet. I mean, it wouldn't be bigger than your cloak closet. And coming out with these gorgeous garments and everything, I was just inspired. I was just like overwhelmed by the whole experience. I bought all the fabric I could find and I brought it back. And I didn't know what I was going to make, but I just thought, I can't leave this here. I have to bring it back and I have to do something with this. So that was kind of a moment for me. I have to tell you about this because somebody said, you said sweeping when you in your presentation. And I thought, and then Bernie wrote this songs about, sweeping the floors, to send you to college. And I thought, and that's what connected me to her, because I said sweeping. And that was actually what June Jordan wrote that poem. I thought we all know about sweeping.
Right.
It's amazing.
And Kabibi, you had a similar watershed moment when you went to Africa, or even before?
I mean, even before, I grew up, my parents are educators, and my father was the student of Dr. George Washington Carver. He went to Tuskegee, and then he was a fast learner. He had his PhD before he was 25. And he was a biology professor at Morgan. But my parents' friends would, it's back in the day, so you're playing cards and smoking cigarettes, and I would sit on the on the stairway and listen to them joke about colonization in Africa and how things were shifting and but they were just much like my family gets together and they joke and laugh and talk about real life situations. So I came up hearing words that I didn't know because I was little, but hearing like it was just commonplace to talk about melanated people in my house. I came up, my father would do programming and initiatives that brought young African young men who were trying to get to college to test out botany and biology, but we'd have exchange students in my house for these, so that they could be part of populate these programs that he was building. And so, I love to dance. That's, those are my intersections. I love to dance. And I also love to explore. So the thing that I could do without needing somebody to take me, like the dance got me and art got me out of the house. I could ride the bus and I could go and take art classes and dance classes, and I would save my allowance to do these things. And then I could explore and roam and spend time in the library and you know, those are the kind of things. And I just think I found my identity in that way. I got a sense of myself that I couldn't get in school and that I couldn't get like on my you know, on the street in front of me. I found an acceptance and a sense of identity by making things, and through magazines and fashion. So like I was a head wrap in essence. Oh my gosh, I was going to do that. You know,
Oh,
I was going to do that. Or a hat and break the brim down and then wear something cultural. I was going to find it. I was going to make it. I was going to do it. And, you know, not knowing the evolution, but that's my stepping, you know, I think I could do nothing else. I think, you know, the journey wasn't a planned one. I just think I could do nothing else. I needed to see myself, you know, much like Elaine said when she talked about dolls. Was I going to do something else? No, I absolutely wasn't. And my journey was one about Blackness, just because, not because I had an anger or a hate, but because
you had
that
a
felt
love.
rich and loving and warm, and it was a place for me to yeah, see myself.
Diana, it's women like this and yourself and Elaine that changed the African American marketplace. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is, oh gosh, I'm resonate with so much of what you've been
That's right.
saying. And
Went through the similar experience in New York, right?
oh, very much so, very much so. And what's so interesting is that there's a, especially during the Black Arts movement, there was this culture that developed. You know, these were folks who were like Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagan, who were very much in the movement, very much aware of their heritage and so on. And the artists that they patronized were artists like Pam, like people who were creating, like could be, you know, it was so interesting. Marvin Sin, who's an incredible
Absolutely.
leather artist who's been
Leather
out
artist.
there. You know, I met him first in the early 1970s at the East, which was a cultural mecca in Brooklyn. And there was the East Festival every summer where on the 4th of July, and there'd be Marvin out there, there'd be a Kosua Bandele, there
At the
was
Boys and Girls High School.
at Boys and Girls.
Ah!
Yes, yes. Actually, it was at the East Center first, and it got so big that they had to move it to Boys and Girls High School. But you'd see people that you'd see, it was like a family reunion, and it was all around craft, incredible music. There was Pharoah Sanders playing, there was all sorts of stuff. And so what I saw happening also was that um there were marketplaces and there were clientele who patronized these incredible artists. So, you know, you knew that you were talking to somebody who was a kindred spirit when you saw that Marvin Sin bag on, you know,
With the
on them. And
mugshot
I
or
mean,
whatever.
he's still going strong. He's still going strong. And or you'd see an Akosua Bandole earring, and you'd know that that Calder, you know, that kind of wonderful individual earring was one of Akosua's. So you know, they may have had like these things in popular culture, what are you wearing? But we knew that we had our own, and you could go to Shiloh every you know, if you're in DC, every Christmas time and well, holiday time and Kwanzaa time, and you'd get all the things that you needed to get to present your identity in a certain way. And you know, a lot of it, you know, we talk so much through what we wear
Mhm,
and sometimes what we have in our houses.
mhm,
So what I like to call the artisans of style, you know, we not only are artisans of style, but we also support artisans of style within our communities. And so I think that's where that marketplace, that individual marketplace is created. And it's varied. If you include here, there are the folks who got themselves who had their hair did, they got their hair pressed and curled, and then there were the folks who had their locks locked, and they had the folks who had their braids braided. And so it's a diverse community, even internally.
Right.
And so, these are the kinds of things that if you go across the country, if you go to California, if you go up north, if you go down south, you'll find that artists, craftspeople are there creating and helping to create that visual identity for the African American community and for the global community.
And people like Elaine, what's interesting about her art is she's doing something to cross the divide.
Yes, definitely. Most definitely.
I said, Elaine, why is this Black art? She said, because I'm a Black woman. It's true, right? Elaine, can you talk about crossing the divide? And also, she's addressing a different, we tend to market to our people, and it's difficult because the time that it takes to do one of your artworks, you can't charge for the artwork. I mean, if you really did, it would be thousands of dollars in man hour. You can't look at any of your work. You can't look at your clothing or the glass work and not realize what it takes. But Elaine has done something else. What have you done, Elaine? Talk about the marketing of your stuff.
I will. Let me first say that I can identify so well with all of you because I integrated a high school in St. Louis while you
Oh,
were
Lord.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
all
welcome to
right.
the club.
and so we did, and it was Catholic. And
Yeah.
that's
Catholic.
what we had to do in order to pave the way for those who would come after us. And the education was good. I didn't care. I was really very strange. I did not care that they had issues because I wasn't there to socialize. I was there to get an education. I would go home and socialize with the group that that my parents had arranged. And like you, Kabibi, my parents had everybody from all over in the house all the time. I mean, so I always tell the story that in the geography book in elementary school in those days, the only reference to Africa was a warrior standing with a shield and a lion cloth next to a hut.
And a spear. You forgot the spear.
We had to have the spear, That's it. That was the same picture, right? But my folks had people there in the home who showed us pictures of the cities and the towns that were as developed as any place in the States. Right. And so we knew that that was not what life was like. Plus, they were coming to get an education. We weren't going there to get an education because when I say we, I mean people in this country assumed that everybody on the continent was illiterate and lived in a village and was backwards and went hunting every day for zebras or something. I don't know. So that background gave us a richness and an understanding of one, who we were, who we are, and how we needed to go forward. We were not intimidated by white folks. If I'm wrong, stop me. But we were not intimidated, nor did we feel less than. We all felt equal to, and in some cases better than, depending upon what they were doing. So, but that said, I am a firm believer that what is Black about our art is that we are doing it. I don't care what way it looks. It is us. And it is not fair, because when white folks decide to do Afrocentric, whatever, that's okay. But if we do anything that does not look Afrocentric, there's something wrong with us. I can tell you repeatedly how many times I've been told, well, we don't carry Afrocentric work, or jewelry, or work that reflects Africa, which translates into, you haven't seen what any of us are doing,
Right.
but you have defined us by the color of our skin. That is just wrong.
Yeah. It's true.
Because if everybody else can emulate what we do, we have the right to be represented in all avenues. And so I have worked at doing that. I do not for a moment allow anyone to not know who we are, but I do insist that the playing field has to be equal. And that energy that I put in my work, just as you put in your work, is representative of that Blackness that we all know and love and respect. And
So
lift.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And what was the last thing you were gonna say?
Lift up. We raise who we are and what we are to be recognized and appreciated.
That's great.
That's true.
You all represent the voices that shaped the marketplace that was created during the Black Arts Movement. It was an intentional effort. It was intentional. It was focused. It was not just about promoting the art. It was about the business of art, right? So, and it was thriving, correct? Am I correct? Kabibi,
Yes,
Baltimore as
yeah,
well.
I want to say that I was able to make a living.
As
I mean, I left IBM. I worked for IBM. That was one of like their first token hires
uh-huh.
back in the day. But I left IBM and I supported myself, through the singing and the making of garments for the community for several years, until one of my sewing clients, got me back into doing what I was doing at IBM. But I mean, but it was always there, that it was a way to make a living and a way to connect with your community. It was always about business, for me.
So the voices are so strong. Can you talk about what happened? What happened to why how has it changed? And what happened to that Black entrepreneurship? Where has it gone?
Well, I think it still exists because there are a lot of people who can do it. I mean, I see Juanita Britton doing it. She's, but it's on a much larger scale now than it was when we were doing it. It was like a small, I would make clothes, I would take it to certain places where they would sell them. For example, Lee, I have a shop, Wonderful Things, or Bernard Gray had Maya Gallery. Hairdressers always were selling clothes. So, and then people would have trunk sales at various places, like up in the 18th Street, where Marvin Senn and all of them would be in that Belmont Arts Center. Then one thing that happened was the redevelopment of DC, where they took away all of the places that would be affordable for our entrepreneurs to be in business in that place. They bought them out and gave them some money and said, well, go somewhere else and do this. And that kind of fractured the community in DC. Although some people have survived, we still have Juanita, we still have artists that are still well known, but for the people who just did just themselves, it became harder.
Diana, what were you going to say?
Yeah, but I think that what is interesting is that, the next generation, like my son's generation and daughter's generation, and below them, that I think that there is a very, very strong resurgence of creative entrepreneurship. It's like the gig economy, but written in black, and so, you see on Instagram, you see online that so many artists now are participating on Etsy. I mean, it's amazing, and not only as craftspeople, but as people who are promoting crafts, who are selling, who are, going virtual, but who are also producing about craft. But I think that that's where in terms of the future of craft, the present and future, um, it's very much online. And I mean, the objects are still there. You're still buying something,
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
buying it on Amazon or Etsy or something like that, but coming from an African American artist.
Well,
And
Kabibi here is the queen of the pivot, of the digital pivot, right? Right? Right, Diana? She is what you're
right, that's for
describing
sure.
in
That's
spades,
right.
right? So how do you do it too? You're doing exactly what Diana is talking about. How did you pivot?
I stand in all the worlds, past, present, and I'm trying to just keep an eye on the future. I think we are in a portal right now. And I think we don't know how things are going to transpire. We're in a place that I don't even know how recognizable, we don't know what the next thing is, but what we do know is that who we are is and the way we work, and it's a worth and a value. But more than that, if we don't infuse culture in everything that we do, as with all of our soul, with all of our being, right?
Yes, that's right.
Then human beings are very forgetful.
Right.
So if we don't do what we're doing, if we say, guys, I can't do that anymore, in 10 years, what we are doing will be forgotten, because the world is moving fast. It's moving so fast at the speed of your timeline. And that timeline switches out. If you see something yesterday, you can't always go back and find it tomorrow, right? So there's a friend of mine that's a sculptor, and she said at one point, "Oh, I realized that my timeline was like my room. It was my studio. I can tell my story in my studio." And that's what I'm going to do, tell the story in my studio. And that struck me. That struck me. It means that I have a certain responsibility to the past, to the present, in an effort to create something that my grandchildren's grandchildren will at least be able to recognize as African, as African in America, because we are an amazing different being, right? We're magical. We are magical Negroes. We are. And so I don't know that I'm the master of the pivot, but what I do know is if I keep on making a way for people to see all of this stuff that is behind me, because they're not going to come into my home studio, then there's some hope. There's some, how does it transpire? Does it mean that people are going to buy it? I don't know what it's going to mean. I just know that my responsibility is not only to the past or to the present, but it is about, standing in the portal of the future in some way, form, or fashion, and figuring it out moment at a time.
This was wonderful. Lisa? Oh, I'm sorry. Were you trying to say something, Elaine?
Yes, of course, I'm always trying to say.
Go ahead.
You are exactly correct, Kabibi. And and one of the reasons that I teach is for that very reason. We have to pass it on. We are the guardians of what has happened in the past, and if we don't pass it on now in the present, then the future is going to be bleak.
Right.
True, that's
Because
very
they
true.
need our young people that are coming along, both our descendants as well as everyone else's children, need the foundation of who we were and who we are in order to go forward in a strong way. And it's they're going to evolve in their own way, and they're going to carry on art in the way that they see it. But with that foundation, that
Mhm.
that thread will come through all the time. It
Yeah.
will
That's right.
always come through, and it creates a strong foundation.
I
Lisa,
think her BB is right too, because you have to change as times are changing.
yes,
You
right.
know, if in our time you had to go to a store physically to buy things, now you don't have to do that anymore. So it like when I was at the Busy Bee show this time, everybody had a website. Everybody had, online, some way of online communication. You could order something, you didn't have to take it right with you that minute. They could get it to you later. They were from Philadelphia, Atlanta, New York, wherever they were from, California, even one person talking about, you can reach me and we can still do business.
That's
So I
right.
think, the business is still continuing, just in a different manner, the marketplace.
Great. Lisa, are you still there? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Lisa was trying to
yes.
butt in to say that there were people with questions.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we have time for a few questions if
Right.
folks want to raise their hand, or you can also write it in the chat. It's just so fascinating. I especially love hearing about the old days.
The old days were
Um,
great. And a
it's
plug and a commercial for Pam. We're going to be doing, and you all better show up, or I know where you live. We're going to be doing a program for Olive Branch Baptist Community Church, right, Pam? Can you
I
tell?
think it's Olive Branch Community Church.
Yes.
They're not Baptist.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's non-denominational.
Mhm.
February the 18th, and it's a combination of music and doll making. So we're talking about passing on both traditions, and Pam is doing spirituals and some of her own songs, which are amazing, which recount our history. So I will send out more information on that. But she's in by next year, we will have a joint program with doll makers and musicians. So you'll
oh,
get the
great.
feeling of making and singing, what it used to be like, what kept us going.
So give
Go
the
ahead,
date again, February when?
18th, right, Pam?
Yes.
February 18th. We'll send out the information so you can see it.
And February 9th is our Around the World Bazaar. I know some of you are going to be there and exhibiting with us. Anyone who has arts and crafts for sale, we invite you. Those tables are only $50, and we have a wonderful, exciting lineup. I have a
Wonderful.
question
Yes.
while we're waiting for folks to jump in with their own questions. I was interested in knowing about the notion of pop-ups, which with the loss of brick and mortar, they've become more popular, but are they really such a new thing? Were pop-ups around back in the day?
Kabibi, what can you talk about the pop-ups?
Trunk shows. I mean,
Yeah, that's trunk show.
living room. So one thing that, people used to have Tupperware parties and, all of this kind of things. It's the same, but it is the same concept, really.
Right.
It really is the same concept, but it is a concept that is about African excellence, African American excellence and artistry. So it is that safe way to show what you have to a targeted audience. And it is, if you are able to do that, then you have collectors that will come and value the experience and revere the experience and bring others that are a targeted audience. So while you are blasting on your timeline to 10,000 gazillion people, one of which might really be interested in buying, right? But you've got to do that big wraparound. But if you want to gather community, it is gathering community, you know, and community that is of kindred spirit, and community that are collectors of your excellence and those of your other kindred spirit of other artists, you know. That's what a pop-up, you know. I think that's what we're in the portal cultivating. I do. I think we're changing the flavor of the trunk show. We're changing the flavor of a pop-up in real time.
Elaine, you just finished doing one of those.
I did. A porch pop-up. It was kind of chilly.
Yeah.
What's
But
the-
but you know, in the setting of a home or a personal space, it does something different. There's something like, you know, well, you never can get rid of me. If I show up, I'll be there to clean up.
it used to be
Elaine, also, you just finished doing another one in your building, right? With some of these artists.
Diana did it with me. And we had fun. It was a great experience. It always is. And it's and going back to what Kabibi just said, it's the names have changed to protect the innocent, but it is what it is. And just in the line of keeping up with the commercials, anyone interested in learning a bit more about jewelry making and bead stringing, I'm going to be teaching a class at Montgomery College in Tacoma Park starting in February. So if anybody's interested.
It's a good class.
Yeah.
Yes, please put in the chat your links to your sites, ladies, and especially about upcoming events. What day will that be on, Elaine?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Oh, okay. Well,
We'll figure
I'll
it
go
out.
to your website.
and tell you in just a minute while you ask a question.
You have
Great.
another
Okay.
question? Lisa, any more questions?
Any questions from the audience? Ray, did you have a question? Oh, he's just listening. He's not okay. He had a comment that it was a wonderful program. So
Are you all?
I think you were so thorough in your discussion. We don't have, let's see. Okay, and everyone's putting their websites in the chat here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you all showing up to
Yes.
the program. That was great. And to the artists for your participation. Again, we are we have an exhibition which we are all participating in. Pam did the music for our PowerPoint for our exhibition, but it's called The Calling, the Transformative Power of African American Doll and Puppet Making. And one of the things we talked about the marketplace, but one of the things that we didn't mention is that there is a spirituality and a healing in the work that we do. A lot of it is, I think we're naturally, individually inclined to it, that we know that there's something larger that we are shooting for, that we are part of. Our sense of universe and ancestry doesn't end with us. You know, our sense of, I don't know, how would you express that? But when our hands are when we are creating, we're not only with the creator, we are with our ancestors. It's such a deep feeling. And the transformation here is, what did you call us? Uniquely positioned. Although we are uniquely positioned to speak of the past, the present, and the future, we also know that we are part of a much bigger game, and that we are learning something, right? there's a plan for us to be together. You know, we can try to fight it, but this is very much a mission and a reason that we're involved in this. And I know it's not politically correct, but we are correct. We are right. And we were put together for a reason. Our message is timely. And when the rest of the world is divided, we understand, right? We understand what we're shooting for.
Timely and timeless.
What did you say?
Timeless.
Timely
That's
and
right.
timeless.
That's right. That's right.
What were you gonna
Well,
say?
Oh, I just wanted to say that the beautiful thing to me about the exhibit of the dolls was if you look at that exhibit, you see what is going on in our communities today. You know, you see the homeless, you see the response, not what's going on, but the response to it. Like you know, the whole, it's a scene, it's a community scene of what is going on, and also what our response to it is. So it's not like you're just going to see, you know, something that's old and that. No, we have come into today with
Right.
our doll. Our doll making represents the things that we brought with us, but the things that we're dealing with today. You know, and that's what is just so fascinating and so wonderful about the exhibit in New York. So I just wanted to say that.
So
Thank
thank you, Pam. And we start with Africa, and we work
Mhm.
all our way into contemporary times using
Mhm.
our artistry. We spend a lot of time, you know, each doll maker is telling their story and also telling the story of their spirituality and their
Mhm.
connectedness to family. It's nothing to see somebody. It's amazing to see the connection when people walk in the room and what they connect to. You think it's going to look obscure and they'll go right for it. Like we open up with Diana's quilt. Halfway through, we're talking about the spirituality that we brought with us, and their eyes will go right to Kabibi's three sisters. Well, I know that they're three sisters. I don't know what that mermaid woman was saying, but Jemoja, and I tell them it's Jemoja, Oya, and Oshun, and they look like them. This is something we brought. We go around the room and we see the community that Francine created and the figures that look like us as we transform from Africans to African Americans. There's no apology there. And then we land on Kizzy. Kizzy is the story of every mother's gift to their child. And then we go down to the children's corner. So there are people that come to the exhibition 2 and 3 times because they can't really get it all in one picture. And one of the things that we tried to do is build a room that represented our aesthetic. As you go around and you look at each of these rooms, you'll see that they're packed with art and textiles. As you know, we're in our personal space, but we tried to represent our personal space without apology in this exhibition and the one before. This is who we are. We're not, you know, we are who we are. And we have something to say, and we've always been here. That's the other thing. People think we just got here. We haven't just gotten here. We've been here. We've been here. The other people making decisions about whether to include us in history, it's a joke. You can't tell this history without us.
Right.
So I hope you get a chance to go to New York. I hope you get a chance to visit the website of these amazing women. Do yourself a favor and look at their artistry and listen to Pam's music. She puts it to music. She captures how we're feeling. And try to come to the next. And of course, Lisa, as always, you do tremendous programming.
That's right.
And you've
Thank you.
you've helped us a lot, and I appreciate it.
Yes, and we're so thankful to have you, Camila, being such a connector to our rich community of artists. And there's always something spinning off, more ideas in my head with this fascinating discussion of more programs. I'm going to be inviting each of you back. You know, it's like branches of a tree just keep growing, and we love hearing from each of you. Thank you so much to Pam Rogers, Kavivia Janku, Diana Njai, Elaine Robnett Moore, and our host and curator, Camila Rice Laporte.
Thank you. And special thanks to Sahar Krizadaku, who couldn't be here tonight because of a death in her family, and also to Phyllis May Machunda, who was the scholar and the energy and the engine that kept us pumping and kept us moving. There's so many other people to thank, but those two in particular, they would have been with us tonight. Yes, yes, Elaine.
Right.
Date is February 8th that it starts.
Okay.
Oh, your jewelry course at Montgomery College.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great.
And can we say, can I also say a special thanks to Diana Njai, who spearheaded our African American craft initiative, she's retiring this year. Kabibi tried to retire, but we wouldn't allow for it. So too bad for you. But she tried real hard. It's not
But
happening.
it's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Not this year, it's not. Crazy. But Diana, we thank you. And I don't know, you're going to be the hardest working retired person.
The fake retirement, what can I say?
Yeah, but we thank you for the work that you did at the
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations to
Thank you.
Diana's retirement.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, and to all of
Thank
you, thank you. This was a great
Thank you.
program. You see where we're going next. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you, audience.
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you to the
Thank
audience.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.